Welcome back to Hometown TCG, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John, and today we are continuing with our deck techs. We are looking at one of my favorites. It is Oldhim. So let's hop on over to FaB here, and we're going to look at this deck. Basically, we're going to go through card by card, how I see every card in the deck, how I see them performing and stuff like that. And then I'll just kind of explain my choices to here. So when you're building Oldhim, you got to know that he's going to be a super defensive deck. We have been seeing some problems of people going to time, so you are going to have to be able to make decisions quickly. The difference is that before, you always were thinking out your lines of play on offense, and that's what took time. Now there's so many different ways to defend with Oldhim that you actually have to plan out your line of defense. So it's kind of a unique way of defending with people with thinking in this game, and that's a challenge that you got to get over and be able to react quickly in order to get through games with this guy. So let's look at this here. I'm going to have these are all the cards that go in the main deck in every single matchup, and then the cards on the right are going to be cards that can be sided out just depending match to match. So let's look at this Winter's Wail. This is going to be our weapon every time. This card is amazing. It's just like the previous weapons that could do 4 damage. You had both Bravo and Rhinar had access to some good weapons doing that. Being able to block with 3 and doing 1 is amazing. But this time you're able to block 3, do 1, and have a hit effect. So his control is just absolutely insane with this weapon. Crater Fist is just there for the block. You don't even really play crush effects in this deck. Crown of Seeds. This is another versatile one to be able to add that extra pitch that you just sometimes have in your deck to be able to cycle something through as well. So sometimes you have a fusion in the opportunities that you attack with something and Arsenal, and you can cycle that away, which is pretty good. It's just a versatile option. Rampart of the Ram's Head. Again, you're not using these effects all the time. It's something that you do on a turn-by-turn basis. Sometimes you're paying 2 for a defense reaction and adding 1 extra defense on there with Rampart, or you're saving the Rampart for their next attack. So this is just a creative one. I really like the card. You're not using it every single turn, but it is pretty great. Command and Conquer. You have to be really careful in this deck without having, when balancing your ratios. So having a generic attack in here can be rough at times, but Command and Conquer is so powerful that I feel like you have to keep it in still. Endless Winter. This is one of my new favorite cards. This one, it just forces them to block, because whether they block or they don't, they're still not going to be able to do anything on their turn. So it's like they might as well block. And even if you don't fuse it, it still has a power that's active, which I absolutely love. It's great because it can be pummeled off of 2 blues. It can be used for just a single blue after a Seismic Surge token. So it has a lot of great things here. Oaken Old. Now, this is one of these dual fusion cards, and these are probably a hot topic in the community right now. The power on them is just incredible. But they are harder to get off. Now, I would argue in Oldhim, it's easiest to get off his than anyone else in the set. I think it's super easy to get Oaken Old off. I don't really have a problem whenever I'm playing with him. Because you can either try to pitch it to the bottom with your Eisenloft, or you can have it sit in your arsenal until you draw it, or you can plop it in the arsenal, bring it to the bottom with your Crown of Seeds at the same time as you pitch your Pulse of Eisenloft card to get them together on the bottom of your deck. And you're playing so much defense, you're always going to see the bottom of your deck, and you see it together later in the game. I just don't see too much of a problem getting this card off. Additionally, 3 for 7 seems pretty good. I think that's another topic. We'll talk about the other ones another time. All right, Pummel. This seems great in this guy. You have the 4-cost attack from Endless Winter. You have some other things that allow you to set this up. I mean, if you're trying to really defend out, you could take it out of your deck, but I think it does offer a lot of value here. Snow Under. These are cards that are 3 blocks. You're going to need a lot of 3 blocks in your deck, and you're already a little short because you're running the elemental cards. So I like having the 3 blocks here. They do have a great effect when you Ice Fuse them at 3 for 7, and the blue ones, it's all right for a blue. Autumn's Touch. This is your Earth card that's going to be blue and 3 block. Channel Lake Frigid. This card's been talked about time and time again. It's one of your most powerful effects, and it's not too hard to keep it out on the field, which is just incredible. It's great against aggro and control, so I love it. Earthlord Surge. This is another one that's it's just a blue earth one, so you can use it when you're fusing. I mean, if you were to fuse Oak and Old, you're not really doing that much with these, but it could be something that's an arsenal target for your Crown of Seeds later on, or it's just a blue, or it can be used with your ability. So it fulfills a lot of different needs. We're not trying to have a lot of these blue earth 2 blocks, but it's something that I'm going to have in the deck just so you have some additional options. Glacial Footsteps. This is one that you can pitch to the bottom to try to finish someone off with when you're playing that grindy game here. Polar Blast. This is your blue 2 block. Blue 2 blocks I'm more okay with because you really want to pitch these cards for your Winter's Wail. So it's okay to have some of these in here. Winter's Grasp. This is your blue 3 block ice card, which is so versatile. Can use it for your ability just as a normal blue. You can use it with Winter's Wail or block with it. Winter's Bite is another versatile one because you're totally cool playing this card when you're attacking, but it's also your blue ice action. Terra Sunder, I've been a big fan of this one. You're not always using it because sometimes it's just not worth it. But when you have the setup for it, when you don't have to block on a turn, it allows you to keep up pressure. And that's a big thing with Guardian, is that if you're trying to play more of that offensive and keep the pressure on them, like an offensive controlling strategy, kind of like Alexi Ice would, you have a tendency to let up at times, just like Bravo would at times. You can't always use all the cards in your hand. So this can help you get there. It's also a blue 3 block. Pulse of Eisenloft is incredible. I would put it as the second best Pulse card. But just pitching this from your hand, being able to block 2 and getting rid of a card from your opponent's hand is amazing. If it does end up in your arsenal or something like that, you don't mind having a 2-cost 6 block defense reaction. Just going to say that. So these are the cards I'm playing in every single matchup. Lots of 3 blocks. We do have some 2 blocks in here, but it's mainly just our ice cards here. We have one only that is Earthlord Surge and one in Pummel. So you have 6 total cards here. That's not too bad. All right, looking at our side deck cards. Biting Gale, amazing against some of these decks that start with an attack and they have their whole line planned out. They're not just going tall on you. Biting Gale can be amazing there. I'm a huge fan of this card, and it costs 2, which means you have an additional pitch open to either do Crown of Seeds or your Rampart of the Ramhead. Blizzard, incredible. It's going to go in pretty much every matchup. It's just so good against the go wide decks, and it's a blue card that blocks, or that it doesn't block. It's a blue card that's an ice. So good. So used to saying blue card that blocks for 3. All right, Burgeoning. This one, it is an earth action, so I can fuse it with stuff that is important when it comes up to your other defense reactions further down in this list. At 2 for 7, you don't hate because it can come in off of a Frostbite token, or it can Seismic Surge you into an Endless Winter. So occasionally, if you're playing more of a mid-range deck, a good play for you is to Arsenal an Endless Winter, wait until you have your Burgeoning, swing that, it would just come in for 6, but you can Seismic Surge for the Endless Winter. Or you can try to pitch it and set up. Another interesting play with Burgeoning is that sometimes, depending on the hand, I'll pitch a Burgeoning with a blue card like a Polar Blast for my ability, and it activates both sides of it. So it's going to block 2, and it's going to force your opponent to get rid of a card from their hand, and you have the extra pitch. So normally I'll block with like a Rampart of the Ram's Head in addition to this. So I'm still getting 3 block and a card out of their hand for 2 cards. All right, that's really not bad there, especially when you can set up your late game for something like this. Okay, Entangle. This is solely here for a blue 3 block. And the fusion power on it, it can get something, but it's just here for a blue 3 block. Glacial Footsteps. This one is here for when you really need to go over the top on someone and push through the damage. I like this card in conjunction with Heart of Ice in order to make your opponent's defense reactions cost more. So I think that is great there. And in addition to Channel Lake Frigid when you have that out. Those two things can really stop your opponent from being able to block this. Exposed to the Elements. This is a really niche card. Just kind of putting into the deck to experiment with it. But certain decks really rely on equipment. Prism is a hard matchup for you that can rely on equipment. Another one would be Viscerai. So Viscerai can rely on that chess piece, and you have to kill that thing in order to stop their Sonata Arcanics and stuff like that. So this could be in here. Another thing you could experiment with is doing Buckling Blow, because Buckling Blow will give the -1 counter, and then Exposed to the Elements can kill any equipment at that point. So you can do that against a Viscerai where they're not blocking with it because they're scared of Exposed to the Elements. Or you can do that against a Lexi with New Horizon, which New Horizon is absolutely essential to making Lexi work. So getting one of these early game can be insane, but you may have to Buckling Blow. So that's something you can experiment with that I'll be looking at moving forward. Nullrune Boots. So this is just in when you need that Nullrune, obviously. We are going to have it on Heart of Ice down here as well. So certain matchups will require Heart of Ice. Certain matchups will require Nullrune Boots. Sink Below. You're going to play this mostly. It's just so good as your 4 block. You're going to want to play defensive, so you want things like this. Continuing with the defense reactions, Turn Timber. This is one where you need more earth cards, such as like Burgeoning. You have your Earthlord Surge. You have your Weave Earths here. So that's when I love doing this. 2 costs for 6 is great in and of itself because you can do that and your Rampart. So you're really blocking 7 off of 2 cards. But if you can block 9 off of 2 cards, it just takes it to the next level. Tectonic Plating. This is obviously your main chess piece, but we have Heart of Ice in here, so you do switch them out depending on your matchup. Weave Ice is kind of like a Weave Earth when they come in. It gives you more of that over the top, and the Dominate, which you can't get like Bravo can. It's a lot harder to. We have Weave Ice, we have Polar Blast, stuff like that. So I'm a huge fan of this card in certain matchups, of course. Iron Rot Legs you'll normally play, and Heart of Ice, we know that it's great against the defense reactions. So trying to figure out what's going to make this thing tick in the mirror, what's going to make it be able to push through. So that's what's happening right now. I like cards like Heart of Ice for that, and some of the other cards we just discussed about being able to push through damage. All right, so in this deck, I found that the ratios are pretty good. My ice cards, I'm normally sitting at 15, which is a tad bit low. All right. If there is one thing I would like to change, it's getting that up higher. But the problem is it's hard to do that while keeping your other stuff where you're at, because you're adding another 2 block into the deck if you do that. You're probably going to take out a blue in that case. So you have to figure out what that's going to be. You know, if it's like an Earthlord Surge, then you're not able to hit your power as much in that sense. If you need that in certain matchups. Also, you're not able to hit the Turn Timber as much, which Turn Timber is one of my favorite cards. So it's just tweaking that. This deck will depend on your meta. If you know your opponent isn't going super tall and you don't need Turn Timber as much, okay, switch these Earthlord Surges out for a I can't think what it's called. The Girl Ice Skating. That card, the 4 damage one, that's a blue. Okay. But as is, I'm a really big fan of the ratios. I can almost always get something with a Winter's Wail. So I love that. The versatility in this deck is really good, and it still has a high 3 block count, which is what we need. All right. Additionally, Oaken Old is one of your most powerful cards, and I have not had trouble getting it off with this deck. So the important thing, though, is that you maintain 60 cards in your deck, unless you know it's really going to go down to the end and you're going to run out of threats. Okay, so most decks, I am trying to play 60 in here. Oldhim is super good at fatiguing people because he has more pitch than normal characters that try to fatigue. So you just don't run out of cards with him. You really don't. His block is insane with being able to keep cards in his deck. So I think Old and Old is great there, and with 60 cards, you can consistently get it off. This deck's super fun. If you do want a guide on exactly when to play each side deck card, we do have that as part of our guide for our patrons, so be sure to check that out if you want a little more in-depth discussion there. If you guys have any questions about any of the cards in this deck or suggestions you think you should change, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'm always looking forward to that and talking with people. I was just talking with a patron about this deck, and he's been really liking mulch in the deck, so I'm just discussing that over some of my other big attacks to get through. So yeah, just be sure to check it out and let us know what you think. And until next time, my name is John, and I'll see you guys later.